Jiu-Jitsu is popularized by the Gracie family in Brazil. From dominating UFC events to never tapping in competition, the Gracies were a real threat. But this all changed when Royler Gracie took on Eddie Bravo at ADCC and he tapped out due to a triangle. Following this win, he created his own gym franchise, 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu, changing the game forever as it was only no gi. I stripped myself of my pajamas and I decided to go to 10th Planet in Austin, Texas. Now sometimes when I go to these other gyms, I don't get to roll with the main guys. But at 10th Planet, that isn't the case. Later in the video, you'll see me take on the owner of this gym. But for round 1, let's go up against one of the viewers of the channel. Now one thing that's always tough to tell when we're doing no-gi is what rank everybody is. And with the rest periods only being 30 seconds, it didn't give me too much time to ask them. One way to force your opponent to move is by pulling down their neck. This made him stand straight up and it allowed me to work in on a body lock, which he quickly tried to convert into an Uchimata, but I was able to land at an angle and then I could turn it into a race where I ended up on top. Now if you want to make your opponent move, just learn from me. At B Team I pretended like I didn't mind my ACL getting torn, and now I'm enjoying Eddie Bravo's secret stash, which he converts into a hip and Kimura. Then he tries to go for a body lock, but I reach around his chin to slow him down and my hips are driving forward so he won't be able to use the body lock to come on top. He tries to go for this body lock anyway, but I have to tell him that no means no. I drive him down to the mat with my right knee, and then I backstep so I can start to attack his legs. His first defense is to pull down on my neck so I won't put him into a bunch of badly named Japanese positions, but he gives me way too much credit because I only want to see feet if I'm paying for them on OnlyFans. Instead I use this as an opportunity to re-enter on half guard, pin his knee to the mat, then show off my weird foot mobility as I Eskrima over the leg to pass into side control. Now here's a mount trick for you. When someone is trying this hard for the underhook, they create a huge space where you can transition a mount. Let them use this underhook to give you a free transition to mount, and now you can set up new attacks. Unfortunately for me, I was a little bit too high when I went for mount. So he escaped by going underneath the leg and then he transitioned into a single leg attack to try and reverse the position. But I took this opportunity to fall down into a Kimura, and I knew I wouldn't be able to finish it here, but I could finish something even better. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, I went for the guillotine after his failed peek out attempt, rolled him into the mount, and I got the submission. Our second time wrestling was going to be a little bit different because after his foot sweep I again entered on the body lock, but this time I treated him like redhead stepchild and that Uchimata wasn't going to work. But for a technique that will work, I throw him into the crossface, which is a great way to bring him to the mat and pin him, then I go into the lockdown. This isn't some magical technique you need to have in your game, but pay attention to how I'm pulling his right leg up. By pulling it as high as I can, he's forced to straighten his leg or have to tap, but you can notice it puts my hips in a really dominant position. And that's because I'm able to post my foot and then throw myself into 3/4 mount. Now I have to give my opponent a lot of praise because he did a nice job going into deep half immediately off the 3/4 mount, but he used it to go for another single leg which gave me another guillotine. He passes to the correct side, but he's throwing himself into a deeper guillotine and I get the tap. Since my back never touched the mat, I'm still able to create choking pressure even though he fell to the correct side. Use that tip to make your guillotines tighter and I guarantee you'll get more submissions. To end the round, I hit him with a quick single leg off the tie, sat in his guard for a little bit, then fell back looking for a footlock like a true no-gi player. A good first round with my partner. Round 2 starts off with a more wily competitor and he's already trying to hit me with a trip for a YouTube highlight. Luckily for me, that gave me a deep underhook, and I follow that up with the world's slowest knee pick to bring us right into butterfly guard. I'm trying to whisper sweet things to him so he'll make me look good on camera, but he uses this opportunity to elevate me and he looks for a high body lock. His long arms are paying off really well because it's tough to break this grip, but by rolling my shoulders back and pushing my chest forward, I create enough distance between two of us that I no longer have to worry about this grip. One thing I really enjoyed about rolling with this partner is that he was always trying to hand fight. Too often when I grab somebody's chin, they just kind of fall over and they give me mount or some good offensive position. But my new opponent is continuing to attack my hands when I'm looking for the Darce choke. Look at this crazy grip he maintains over my wrist. While I was close to passing his guard, now I have to go to the front head because I can't get my hand back. Eventually I am able to strip his grip and I fall into the guillotine, but I can't get much done because he's still fighting my hands this entire time. The downside, however, is that if you're constantly attacking my hands, you can't control my legs, so I'm able to move around him as freely as I want. And again, when I'm looking for the deep waist, look at this crazy control he has behind his own back because he doesn't want to concede the position to me. Then he follows up by rolling into a very neutral position, the open guard. But unfortunately for him, every dog has its day. As he is messing around with his De La Riva guards, I follow with him and apply a lot of shoulder pressure to his leg and stand up. And following back to my blue belt days, I went for my old school favorite submission, the toe hold. No hand fighting was going to help him here, and I even switched to a thumb in grip for extra power to get the tap. If you haven't noticed a trend, I always set up my takedowns with my right underhook, which you can see more of on my Patreon with my takedown guide, but in this scenario I use it to drive him forward to get his left leg light. Then I elevate his leg while he's stepping with my own foot to catch a single leg and drag him down for the takedown. I generally prefer to do standing passes, but my opponent was doing a great job with his frames, especially with his long limbs, that I was going to have to resort to pressure passing. His frames are doing an effective job keeping my shoulder away, so I pry off of his hand and I pin it to the mat. Then I can push my chest on top of his legs and I look for the guillotine, which allows me to pass right into mount once I have the chin strap. To finish this with one hand, all I have to do is walk my right hand across the mat as far as I can, and it forces him into the choke. Another fun roll for my video, but now it's time to take on the main boss. For round 3, I'm going up against the owner of the gym, who told me that at one point he was a top 10 ranked black belt by flow. By this point in the night, it was round 6 and the first thing to go when I get tired is my wrestling. And as a small spoiler alert, that probably wasn't my best decision since I set up so many of my attacks with my wrestling. The first thing I tried to do is flatten him out in half butterfly, but I left my shoulder too far exposed, and at a moment's notice he flicks his leg out and he throws me into a triangle, already cutting off to a good angle. Now my number one defense to the triangle is to try and sit on my butt, bring my feet over the stomach, and then push away. But he kept pulling my arm in, so that was going to be very tough to do, and this is giving him more time so he can set up the proper angle he needs to get the choke. I wasn't in a spot where I felt like I had to tap to the choke, but what's tough to see from the camera angle is that he was working my arm relentlessly. I was Gable gripping my hands together and trying to tuck it within my hip pocket, but he was able to rip it out and get the tap with a Kimura. Not a great start for me going up against the gym owner, but this time I'm going to work on bottom, see if it gets better. And guess what? It didn't. No, in fact, I'd say this was not a very fun roll for me. He pushed me into mount and was doing a great job applying some devastating chest pressure while working the underhook at the same time. Just like Biden trying to hold on to his memory, I was trying as hard as I could to keep my hands locked. Because the moment I lose that is the second where his mount becomes a lot more terrifying. He even tried to hit me with a no-gi Ezekiel, but I'm sorry, that's not going to happen on video. But at least when he went for that attack, it allowed me to bring my hands back so I could place them on his ribs and start to work an escape. Until he went for the same attack, I flared my elbow a little bit too much and he got another underhook. This time around, he didn't want to give it up. He put his forehead to the mat so it's going to be tough for me to bring my elbow down, and he was transitioning into a head and arm choke. But I stole this cross frame that I learned from somebody else in Texas, and it actually kept me alive for a pretty long time. I felt like I was here for an eternity, but you know that men are always lying about how long they last. Once he was able to get past my elbow, he jumped over my cross frame and got the tap. And as if 2 taps wasn't enough, he caught me with my own move. When somebody puts me in a deep half, I like to push their head by and take their back, which is exactly what he did to me here, even using the same Kimura grip which gives you the next attack, which to the surprise of nobody should be either a triangle, armbar, or just finishing the Kimura. And in this case, it was a little bit of all 3. I really appreciate when people roll hard with me. It makes me better at jiu-jitsu, and I don't want to be that guy that only shows my wins. 10th Planet in Austin was an awesome place to train, especially if you go during their 10-round Tuesday. But there are still more gyms to come, so make sure to subscribe to the channel, thank you to all my current patrons, and if you want to have the ability to pull off some slick toe holds, guillotines, or other submissions, check out xmartial.com. They have wonderful jiu-jitsu gear, whether it be rash guards, spats, gis, and other itinerary. Check out their website, use promotion code Tyler10, and you won't be disappointed.